Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books. On today's series Sunday, I have read the first Mary Poppins book by P L Travers on BorrowBox, which is an app connected to my local library and connects to libraries all over the country. I have never read Mary Poppins. I grew up watching the film. My mum knew that if she put Mary Poppins on the television, I would not move for 3 hours. It's a long film. It's 139 minutes. Yes, that puts it at like just under 2.5 hours. It's a long film, but it's so good. But yeah, I wasn't somebody who grew up reading the books, so I thought it would be interesting to read it. They've only got the first book one in the Essential Modern Classics section, and it is 192 pages in children, classics, fantasy. So I'll read that blurb to you. When the Banks family advertise for a nanny, Mary Poppins and her talking umbrella appear out of the sky, ready to take the children on an extraordinary adventure. Mary Poppins is strict but fair, and soon Michael and Jane are whisked off to a fun fair inside a pavement picture and on many more outings with their wonderful new nanny. Needless to say, when at last the wind changes and she flies away, the children are devastated, but the magic of Mary Poppins will stay with the Banks family forever. So yeah, this was just so lovely, and it just, to be honest, with the way the chapters are set up, it feels like a lot of short stories with just common characters involved. They really do work as individual short stories, each chapter, and you know, there's some stuff in there that obviously was not in the film and stuff that there was. I feel like the blurb of it is closer to the film than what actually happens in the book, because the blurb implies that Michael and Jane are whisked off to the fun fair inside the pavement picture, but they're not. In the book, it is just Mary and Bert, and they have like their own little private little date by themselves. Michael and Jane aren't involved in that short story. I do find that in the book, Mary's a lot stricter than she is in the film. I mean, she's already quite strict in the film, but she definitely seems more strict and more gaslighty in the books, because it is very much a case of she'll take the kids on this wonderful adventure, and then they'll come back and Jane and Michael will be there going, "Oh, wasn't that amazing? Do you remember that time when we went up and your uncle was on the ceiling and we had tea up there?" And she's there going, "That absolutely never happened." And then, but there'll be evidence of it later and they're just like, "Wait, no, that did happen and she was there and we know this." And Mary's just completely just blanking them. It's the same, because there's one of them which is supposed to be when it's Mary's birthday, and it's on a full moon or something like that, and they end up at a zoo in like the middle of the night, and Mary doesn't actually take them on the adventure technically. Michael and Jane are woken up and they kind of just follow to the zoo where they are welcomed in, and there's people in cages, all the animals are free. It does feel a bit like a comment on zoos a little bit. What I loved about that little section was the whole thing of the animals actually say they collected whoever was left at the zoo and popped them in the cage. It kind of sounds like how they joke about employing people at IKEA. They just like gather up whoever's left and give them a uniform. But yeah, so after that one, because it's one of the snakes gives Mary a birthday present of an old skin, because it's just like, oh, what can I give Mary, the woman who just is impossible to please essentially. But if they're actually with her genuine friends, it seems like you don't actually have to do much for Mary, because she genuinely appreciates all her friendships within the book. But yeah, so after that night, Jane and Michael are there going, "Oh, did you have that fabulous dream?" And they're talking about it and they're just like, "Was it a dream?" And then they look over at Mary and they realise she's got this old snakeskin belt, and they're just like, "Wait, no, it must have been real, because Mary has that belt of the skin that the snake gave her." Yeah. These days it would be called gaslighting. It's just such a lovely collection of stories. It really just does tap into that Child Within. I mean, it says target audience 8+, but to be honest, I think younger kids can enjoy it because it's not like it's anything particularly dark, really. The only thing really is that Mary Poppins can be quite strict at times, but you know, she's a nanny. Seeing just how little things will like change for the movie, and like you still got the character of Bert is evolved more for the movies, but in this case Bert only actually appears 2 chapters? I want to say it's only 2 chapters, and it definitely looks at more of a relationship between Mary and Bert. I mean, it's kind of implied in the film, especially when they have their little date, when you've got them entering into the picture and you've got like the penguins and everything. But yeah, Michael and Jane, when it talks about whisked off to a fun for inside a paper picture, now in the book it was just Mary and Bert having their little private date. But also in the books, there's more siblings. It's not just Michael and Jane. They have baby twins, which are Barbara and John. And there's a really, really lovely chapter where you look at Barbara and John as babies, communicating with each other and talking about how they can understand the wind and the animals and all this, and saying, well, I'm never going to grow up if they can't hear the wind talking to them. And then Mary's there going, well, one day you will forget. One day you will forget and you won't be able to communicate with the animals, the birds, you won't be able to hear the wind speaking to you, and they're just there going, well, I'm never going to grow up. But then you see them grow up, and there's a bird that communicates with them from the window, and there's a point when the bird comes back and realises that the twins can't communicate with him anymore, and that they have grown up, even if it is only like a few months later. And that chapter with Barbara and John and as babies communicating with each other, and the jokes and the laughing, and saying about like how it's so easy to entertain the adults, because I think it's Barbara likes to take her socks off and John likes to put his foot in his mouth, and yeah, and they're just saying, oh look how easy it is to just entertain them all. And so like when they're having their little moments, and then suddenly the mum comes in and she's like, oh, my babies are crying, and so Mrs. Banks like starts fussing over them. They're just there going, oh, let's just entertain her and make her feel like that she's done something, even though we are perfectly in control of our own destiny here. And so Barbara takes off her socks, John puts his foot in his mouth, and she's like, oh look, they're all better now, and they go. And because Mary can communicate with the twins as well. It's just a lovely book, and as I said, the rest of the books aren't on Borrowbox for me at the moment, but I'd love to read the others. I'll probably have to go and track them down. Though at the moment I'm trying to save my money, so I'm trying to avoid spending all my money on books, because I've spent a lot on books recently. Mainly finish out my Tess Gerritsen collection, which I know there's more, but I'm just putting books on the back burner at the moment, so that I can save. I am hoping to have my own place within the next year, so that's how much I've been saving. I've got a good little deposit. I just need to have enough to be able to live on as well. It's just such lovely stories, and it is one that it must have been so lovely to grow up with these books. I'll admit I've gone kind of like my P L Travers Wikipedia page before, and I'll admit, as well as having Mary Poppins as one of my favourite films from childhood, as I said, it was very easy for Mum to just put Mary Poppins on the TV. I think there's quite a few pictures of both me and my sister sat staring at, I think it was our black and white television. I was born in 89 and grew up in the 90s, but we had a black and white television when I was little, and I lived back in Essex, and I swear it was just like this is the TV, this is me and my sister, and we're like this just staring at it, because it's just a wonderful film. I feel like Julie Andrews is like an adopted grandmother at this point, because Julie Andrews as Mary Poppins has been in my life since I was a baby. I absolutely loved Mary Poppins, and still do love Mary Poppins. I mean, I absolutely loved the remake with Emily Blunt, but the Julie Andrews version of that film just has a place in my heart forever. Even Dick Van Dyke's dodgy English accent, it's just like, I don't care. And the fact is, for anybody who does love Mary Poppins, it's just wonderful. And the music is wonderful, and Feed the Birds is always up there as like one of the best Disney songs ever written. I'm sure there's multiple now, but when you really look at like the classic songs of Disney, Feed the Birds is always like up there. And I believe it was actually Walt Disney's favourite song, and I think one of the Sherman brothers actually, I always get the Sherman brothers mixed up. It was one of the Sherman brothers actually played the piano at an anniversary for Walt Disney. I'm not sure if it was Disney World or Disneyland, but as he was playing Feed the Birds at this piano in front of a Magic Kingdom castle, a bird swooped down and came back up again while he was singing, and it was just thought, that is just such a beautiful moment. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Richard Sherman who played the piano at some kind of anniversary for Walt Disney, and as he played Feed the Birds for Walt Disney on a regular basis, and I just think that's so beautiful. But as well as Feed the Birds being like one of the greatest songs, and it's actually in my audition prep. It's one of my go-to audition songs for a lot of things. Like, I've auditioned for Les Mis for that song and got it. I auditioned for The Sound of Music with that song and got it. And then there was also an audition I did in Preston, I think it was, where I sang that song for an audition, and it got me like 2 jobs touring the country. And so yeah, it's always a song that's going to be in my heart, and it will always come out for auditions because it's just such a beautiful song and it fits so nicely in my voice. But also, as well as that, my other favourite song from Mary Poppins is Stay Awake. I absolutely adore that song, and I think it's also because it's such a lovely song to sing a cappella. And I used to sing that song to my niece when she was tiny. I would carry my niece around the house singing that song to her to get to sleep, and it would always work. It's like pure reverse psychology in a song. Stay awake, don't rest your head. I just adore it, and yeah, I love the fact that Julie Andrews went to Pamela Travers and said, Disney are threatening to take this song out. They threatened to take Stay Awake out of the film, and Julie Andrews went to P L Travers and said, you have to help me save this song. And so she did, and they fought together to keep Stay Awake in Mary Poppins. I think that's amazing. Also, for other people who are fans of like Mary Poppins and P L Travers, the movie Saving Mr. Banks was just absolutely brilliant. You got Tom Hanks as Walt Disney, you've got Emma Thompson as P L Travers, you've got lots of little cameos in there as people playing like the Sherman brothers, and there's a wonderful actress playing Julie Andrews. And when I look up though, you know, the actress who played Julie Andrews in that film with Julie Andrews, I'm just like, they could be related to each other. That is how good the casting was, and it's just completely fascinating to look at P L Travers' life. I mean, that wasn't even her name, it was a bit of a stage name almost, because she didn't think she'd be taken seriously if she used her real name. So she took P L Travers because she realised that they couldn't figure out if she was a man or a woman by using her initials. It's kind of like what J.K. Rowling did. Yeah, Pamela Lyndon Travers, born Helen Lyndon Goff. So Lyndon was always there, but yeah, she changed her name to Pamela Lyndon, but originally just went by P L Travers because she thought she'd be taken a bit more seriously as an author if people couldn't identify who she was. But I love the fact that in Saving Mr. Banks, it just looks at everything that Disney did to try and get the rights to Mary Poppins to make the films. It took them quite a long time to do it. It was like years trying to get the rights to it. The film, the 64 version, was primarily based on the original 1934 novel, which was the one that I just read. But then it also lifted elements from Mary Poppins Comes Back, which I haven't read. But yeah, when you look at the original Mary Poppins book, there's actually not as much lifted from that book that made it into the film. There's only a couple bits, so you've got them. Mary and Bert in the painting, as I said, in the book, the kids weren't there. It was just Mary and Bert, and they have their moment of having their private little dinner date, which you see in the film, kind of, only in the film they did it with the cartoon penguins and everything. And you see them go out onto the carousel, and there's talks about them going off and then coming back off, on their horses. The whole love to laugh moment is in the book. You don't have the joke about the wooden leg named Smith. That's not in the book, that was for the film, but you've got that little bit. And obviously the whole thing of like her coming like on the wind and stuff. But there's only like 2 or 3 chapters from the first book that actually made it into the film. So it'll be interesting to see how much of Mary Poppins comes back is in the film. Yeah, can you tell I just really enjoyed reading this book? Oh god, it was more than 5 years. They spent 20 years trying to purchase the film rights to Mary Poppins. Can you imagine what Pamela Travers had to go through? Just being hounded by Disney saying, please give us the rights so we can make this film. And they're just going, no. 20 years. That is incredible. Yeah, it was in 61 that Travers went to Los Angeles. Her first class ticket had been paid by Disney, and then I've finally agreed to sell the rights. Mainly because she needed the money. After all that, after 20 years, she was just like, actually, I do need the money. She was an advisor. She disapproved of the Poppins character in its Disney version. To be fair, the Disney version of Mary Poppins is very Disney Mary Poppins. As I said, you know, in the book, she just felt so much more stricter. And you do have moments of her being happy, like when she's reunited with Bert and when she's with her friends. But also in the book, she seems extremely vain. There are so many references to her standing in front of a mirror or in front of any reflective surface and just admiring herself and her reflection. It's, yeah, in the book, she is very, almost self-obsessed a little bit and very vain. But yeah, Travers hated the Disney version. She hated it. But I feel like she did actually gain a bit of a friendship with Julie Andrews, who was trying to be as faithful to the character from the books as she could, considering what Disney had done to it. And when the stage musical was made, she tried to make an agreement with Cameron Mackintosh that Disney were not involved and that the Sherman Brothers were not allowed to write any additional songs for the stage musical. Things were changed after she passed away, and Disney became involved once she passed away. So it's a bit naughty, little bit naughty on Cameron Mackintosh's part for having this agreement with P L Travers, and then when she passed away going, oh, now that she's gone, now we'll see what we can do about getting Disney involved and writing some possible extra songs. But yeah, additional music and lyrics by George Stiles and Anthony Drew. So it doesn't look like the Sherman Brothers did actually write any extra songs for the musical. I saw the stage musical when I was at college. Yeah, because I remember mine and my friend's seats were upgraded because we were sat pretty much in the gods at the top, and she suffered really bad vertigo and she started to feel really dizzy and really sick. So I went to the box office and said, we're really sorry, my friend's quite unwell, sitting up there, is there anything we can do? And so they upgraded us, no extra fee, to the stalls, me, my friend and one of our tutors. And so the three of us got to watch it from the stalls, and it was absolutely incredible. Oh, I'd so love to see it again. This has just gone from being like just a comment on the book to looking at the comparisons with the film and a little bit of the new film. And because I must admit, I think it's in the new film. To be fair, I've only seen the new film once, the Only Bun one. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that the zoo story from the Mary Poppins book, the first one, I have memories of some of that being in the sequel film. Correct me if I'm wrong, to be fair, I've only seen the Emily Blunt film once all the way through, and then I've seen other bits in like bits. Absolutely love the movie, love the book. I'd love to read the rest of them and see how much more of the other books were incorporated into the film. I know that for the musical it went a bit more faithful to the book as well. I loved it, absolutely loved it. So let's get that front cover up again. Isn't it beautiful? I feel like this is something that I'd want to have the actual books of. Yeah. So I'm just looking lovingly at this front cover. Mary Poppins, the original story, the classic adventures of a magical nanny. It says on a little sticker on the front there. I'm just so happy. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time with another video. Love you all. Stay safe. I'll see you next time.
You're going to pack this one for you.
Sure.
It folds apparently.
Ooh. Pretty fun video to edit.